Hi, my name's Matt. I'm a paddlesport instructor here at Glenmore Lodge. Even though we've got some snow in the hills just now, summer's just around the corner, which means we're starting to think about going off on some paddleboarding adventures. And we're super excited about the new sub-courses that we've got for this season as well. So what I thought we'd do is just spend a wee bit of time getting our brains back into gear and thinking about the kit that we're going to need to wear, kit that we're going to need to take with us, and some stuff about the boards as well, so we get our brains back into gear for going paddling again. So kicking off with the board itself, the first thing you're going to want to make sure you do is you inflate it to its recommended inflation level. So there'll be a temptation to give up pumping because it's quite difficult, but if you get your board nicely inflated, that's going to make it so much more efficient and it's going to cut through the water so much better. So for most boards that's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20 psi, but it's worth checking what your recommended inflation level is. So get your board nicely pumped up, that'll be the first thing. Definitely want to make sure that you've got a leash of some sort that allows you to stay attached to the board. If you were to fall off it, what we don't want to do is don't want to happen is the board to career away from us. So a leash is really good for most situations and environments. That's going to be a coiled leash, except maybe if you were going out in the surf. If you're going out in the surf, we don't want that board to rebound, so we probably want to have a straight leash, but that would be the only exception. For most cases we're going to have a coiled leash. Then in terms of how you're going to attach it to yourself, definitely worth for all situations really to have a quick release belt. A quick release belt means you can take this off if you were to get snagged on something. And in terms of how that's going to attach, that's going to go around my waist in most cases and do it nice and tight. And it's just a case of pulling this toggle here if I needed to release myself from that. I might put it a wee bit higher up around my chest sometimes as well. So a quick release belt that's attached to my leash and attached to the board. It's definitely something that I want to make sure that I have. And then obviously I need to have a paddle. So a nice adjustable paddle is good. You can change the height of, depending if you're going into the wind or with the wind, for example. So an adjustable paddle is good. In terms of a general idea about height, if I put my hand like this just on the top of my head, that should be about level with the top of the paddle. So that's what we're going to have in terms of paddle height. Moving on to the kit that I'm going to be wearing when I'm going paddleboarding. For most cases, a wetsuit is going to do the job nicely. The great thing about neoprene is if it does get wet, that keeps me nice and warm. So a wetsuit to wear is good. For this one, we've got a long john wetsuit here. You might also choose to wear a steamer wetsuit, so one with arms. So that's a bit dependent on the type of paddling that you're doing and how much you feel the cold and stuff like that. So a wetsuit to wear. On my feet, some wetsuit booties of some sort would be really good. Nothing too big and bulky. It's nice to have thinner soles because then you can really feel that connection with the board. But equally some stuff that's got a bit of grip, so if you ended up in a rocky environment you can still move around the place. Running trainers are also quite good for that as well. So something to wear on my feet for most of the time. If I really feel the cold or it's a wee bit windy or a wee bit chilly, then I might add on top of the wetsuit some over trousers and maybe a cag as well, a cagoule layer to go over the top if I'm really feeling the cold. If I'm going paddling in a river or a rocky environment, then I might also want to consider a helmet. So a helmet to wear if it's going anywhere rocky or on a river. And also on a river I might want to consider taking with me a throw line and skills to know how to use it as well, so that might be a consideration. And a buoyancy aid. In most cases we're going to want to wear a personal flotation device or a buoyancy aid. That just gives me the ability to swim really safely if I need to be able to do that. And inside the buoyancy aid pocket on my person is a good place to keep your communication devices. So if I did get into bother and I needed some help, having my communication devices on my person is going to be really good. So things that I might take for that will be my mobile phone, and that's going to be in a nice waterproof case, checking that I can use it when my hands are wet. So a mobile phone. Mobile phones don't work everywhere, sometimes we don't have signal. So if you go into places like that, and particularly if you're going out paddling on the sea, then a good thing to take as well and invest in would be a personal locator beacon or a PLB. This works via satellite, and it's just a case of pressing a button and then I can alert the emergency services if I need to. So a PLB might be something to consider too. And also going out paddling on the sea, I might want to carry a VHF radio and go on a course so I can find out how to use that. So VHF radio, the beauty of that is it provides two-way communication. I can communicate with the Coast Guard, I can communicate with other vessels and find out where my friends are as well, so a VHF radio might be something to consider as well. So they're going to be on my person. You might also want to take, if you're out on the sea, an LED flare just to alert attention as well. That's probably going to get packed in my dry bag, so that might be something else to consider in terms of communication. A sling and carabiner can be quite handy to tow somebody. So if my friend needs some help paddling against the wind, for example, I might be able to tow them. So having that in my buoyancy aid pocket can be quite useful as well. So they're the bits and pieces that are probably going to go into my buoyancy aid. In terms of the rest of the stuff, there's obviously quite a lot of stuff here. I'm not going to take all of this all of the time. It's going to be dependent on lots of factors. It's going to be dependent on the weather, how far I am from help, where I'm going paddling, who I'm going paddling with. All of these are factors in terms of what kit I'm going to carry with me. But here's some of the options. So I might just take some of this some of the time. Again, if I really feel the cold or it's changeable weather, and then having some spare layers is a really good idea. Spare layers that go over the top of everything can be really good, so I don't have to start taking off my CAG and my buoyancy aid, etc. I can just pop stuff over the top. So one example of that might be a storm CAG, which is this orange thing here. That's a nice windproof layer that can just go over the top of everything. Likewise, if it's a really chilly day or I really feel the cold, then having a synthetic belay jacket packed away in a dry bag can be a useful thing as well. If I'm going out paddling a wee bit longer, I might take some food with me. That's in here, and some drink to keep hydrated as well. We like to think that going paddling in Scotland, it's normally really sunny, but we try and choose that for when we go supping. So bits and pieces for if it's sunny, some suntan cream. The water will reflect the sun quite a bit, so sunburn is a bit of a risk there, so some sun cream would be good. And then maybe a sun hat and some sunglasses would be good when we get that glare on the water. If it's not that sunny and it's a bit changeable, a bit cold, then I might take some paddle mitts. So some open palm mitts are really good. This open bit here allows me to still keep some good dexterity, some contact with the paddle, but this top layer keeps the wind off really nicely. So neoprene paddle mitts are good, and maybe a woolly hat as well to have in. And in terms of other bits and pieces I might want to take, if I'm out with a group of pals, then I might want to take a group shelter. This is essentially a tent without poles that all of us can get inside if there was a problem and stay nice and warm on the shore. Likewise, a blizzard bag can be really good. If someone's really feeling the cold, I can get them inside that, a big blizzard bag, and keep them warm. Fins are prone to breaking, so I might want to also take a spare fin with me for my board. If one were to snap off, then my board's really going to struggle to go in a straight line, which might cause me quite a few problems. But if I have a spare one, that will solve that problem really nicely. So consider taking a spare fin with you. All of this clobber is going to go into these wee dry bags here, and then that will get packed into a nice, good quality big dry bag there, and that will sit on the front of the board, just where the bungees are. So all of that spare kit's going to be packed into there. So as I said, I'm not going to take all of this stuff all of the time. It's going to be dependent on a few things, but these are some of the bits and pieces you might want to consider. So there we go. That's us preparing to get on the water, and look forward to hearing all about your paddleboard adventures this summer.